I hope that everyone that listens to this interview will go listen to the album, because it has something for everyone, and you can feel the overwhelming.
And it's such a labor of love, I can
Yeah,
tell.
and it's a mountain of energy that people have put into this. Undoubtedly, Dante has put in everything into this that he can. So yeah, I think that story is a good testament to the importance that this project has in people's lives.
Yeah, you're making a good point that after we did this project, everyone looked at each other and we all said, we did something pretty amazing here tonight. Something happened here tonight beyond what happened here tonight. And we all felt that, and we all knew that no matter what we do for the rest of our lives is ever going to be any more important than what we did here. For everyone on this project, they all emphatically stated to me that this was the best work they had ever done. And they all credit me with pulling it out of them, but I like to say I didn't pull anything out. I feel like Michelangelo, he once said that I don't do anything. I just get rid of what's unnecessary, and what's left over from the rock is what remains. I just got rid of what was unnecessary. I like to think that that's what I did. I didn't do anything. They had it in them. I just gave them an avenue to let it out. It was always there. I didn't do anything. This project turned the light on in them, and I think that there was more than just us in that room that night, if you know what I mean. There was something going on there. There was more than just us in that room. I almost, want to say that maybe Dr. King was there and a few musician friends might have popped in for a quick hello, because I don't know. It was just the way I knew that it was going to work well if they just relaxed into the conversation. But the way things happen, like between Kenwood and I, when you're listening to the alphabet piece, I just knew where he was going, and he knew where I was going, and we just knew there was no conversation. We didn't have to look each other's eyes. Usually musicians like to look at each other so they know what's going on. We didn't do that. We didn't have to. I would go here, and it was like it was my left arm that knew what my right arm was doing, and the way that happens, your left arm and the right arm know what they're doing together. We were like that. Avery looked up from his booth in the live room after he read the first part of Act 3, that whole piece where from cotton fields to battlefields to tenement slums, but still I breathe. He looked up after he read that first part, and he said, I lived this. After he said that, I just knew that no matter what, if this project goes over well with the community or not, or if it never sees the light of day, I know that I did something here. That's all that I needed for him to say that, because I just respect Avery immensely as an artist, as a human being, and as a voice in the Black community.
For people listening, I just want to point out what Dante is talking about is that Avery Brooks, who, if you don't know who Avery Brooks is, please look him up. I can't summarize here, but Avery Brooks is featured on the album and performs all the spoken word on the album. So that's what Dante is referring to, just to be clear.
One other thing I did want to point out is that these musicians, all of them, including Avery, had never played together. They didn't even know each other. So that was another thing that was really incredible, that they didn't even know each other, but they settled into that conversation so quickly. You would think that these were old friends just getting back together and talking about old times. It was incredible that they never, ever met each other. So that was another remarkable thing about it. But thank you for pointing out about Avery. Yes, I guess when I talk about Avery, I just assume that everybody just knows how wonderful he is, because he's just such a loving spirit and just a great individual. I guess you can tell that I'm very biased about Avery, but I am. I don't mind expressing it because I just think the world of the man. I love the brother. I just, he's just been so supportive of this project and so important to this project, and continues to be an inspiration in my life. So I will always be grateful for having the opportunity to work with him and get to know him, and that will always be important to me. Thank you for explaining that for me.
We wish everybody knew. We wish we could assume everyone knows who Avery Brooks is.
It's just providing the appropriate context for people listening in. But yeah, go look him up. He's great.
We've talked a little bit, more than a little bit about how the sound for this album was put together and created. Do you think Dante, you could talk a bit about, for example, the album cover and the YouTube video piece as well?
Sure. There's a couple of parts going on in the album cover. That was taken actually from a photo. I do photography as well. Again, this is not to blow my own horn. I felt like, I needed to preface that before I go into this. Because the album cover with that piece that says Made in Germany on it, that was actually a photograph that I had done. And I took that one section of the photograph, actually the whole photograph, I took it out of context and put it in the album cover. And then the album cover, what it's supposed to be, is a room without walls. And the way it was created, I used gradations instead of having a line where walls intersect. No walls intersect. If you look at the piece, all the objects in that room create the walls, the edges for the walls. If you look at that black rectangle, that makes the edge where the walls meet. I used the items in the album cover to create the walls. There's no wall that interlocks where you see a corner in a wall locking together. It just kind of gradates into a lighter area to a darker area and gradates down into the floor to make a kind of a floor. But the floor doesn't meet the wall. It's kind of just gradates into the wall. And then if you look over where the Made in Germany piece is, that kind of creates the context for that wall. And what's going on in that piece is the room is supposed to be this room without walls, but then you have that rectangle, which is supposed to be a black hole. And if you look at everything on the Made in Germany piece, I created it in such a way that everything is kind of going on a diagonal and looks like it's going into that rectangle, like it's being sucked into the black hole. There's like a half round piece on there that comes over by the lips, that comes over into, I'm speaking of the Made in Germany part now, it comes over into the piece there. That's supposed to be the black hole encroaching on everything which is going towards the black hole, and this is the presence of the black hole encroaching on the objects in that photo. What the whole thing with the Made in Germany is meant to be is, again, it's about the police and law enforcement. When I had seen some of these things happening, some of these incidents that have gone on, I'm not going to go into them because, as I said, I don't like to go back to those things. And we all know what happens. We all know the story, and we've all been there too many times. And unfortunately, we all know the sad truth of what's going on. And as I've said in my piece, we're all singing another dirge. And
we don't want to sing another.
Right,
we don't have to
right,
sing one. Have to sing another one. Yeah.
It was kind of me, basically just me comparing the law enforcement and that whole totalitarian attitude that they seem to have about the black community at large, that I kind of got the feeling like they were like the Gestapo. I just wanted to say, this is not attacking the German community. The Gestapo was from Germany. And so this whole thing was me comparing the police force to the Gestapo and saying, basically, Made in Germany. That's where this whole thing in this country started, with the Gestapo, which came from Germany. So Made in Germany just seemed like, a tongue-in-cheek way of saying this thing. And that's what that's all about. And the lips, as I explained to you yesterday, yes, it's supposed to represent a vagina. And that's not to be perverted or anything like that. It just simply is meant to create this stark reality of humanity and a dystopian Garden of Eden, if you will. If you look at that picture on Made in Germany, that's what it's supposed to create, this desolate, isolated feeling. And that's what the whole album cover is basically about. I hope I got that out clearly enough. I'm not sure. I hope it made sense.
I think it made sense.
But that's the best way that I can think of to explain it. And actually, something else that I wanted to explain, when I said about how I picked the musicians, I said it was very similar to how I chose Oberlin. I didn't want to go through commercial radio, so I looked around, and Oberlin just had, after I was looking into it, I just felt this synergy with this college. I just felt a connection with it, that it just felt like the right way to go. And I knew right away, it was just an intuitive understanding of it. But I kind of just saw this as a kind of a grassroots thing. And I wanted that to happen on the campuses first, so that the young voices coming up need to be the ones who hear this. And they're the ones who really care, I think.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
As I was saying to you yesterday, I think that anything that you want to get out, it's all about belief in anything. The only thing that makes anything real is the belief in it. And that's what I was trying to say when I said about everyone starting to tell a new story. What you believe is at least as important as the way you receive things around you. You have to believe in anything to make it real. The only thing that makes a tree solid, per se, is that we believe it is. I know that sounds crazy, and it's just kind of a way of making a point that, that what we believe is what happens. And I believe in Black in My Own Way, and I believe in society, and the society will rise to the occasion and will do what's necessary when time comes. And I think that people are getting to that point where they're wanting to tell another story and tired of telling this same story of what is. I never look at things directly. I always look at things peripherally and try to get a perspective on my own of what I'm looking at, instead of being directed by what's in front of my eyes. You did mention you wanted to speak about the film, so
yes.
if you'd like me to speak to that, I'd be glad to speak to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So well, the whole thing with the film, I didn't want to do something that was high tech, because I felt like that's just overdone and it's played out. Everybody is doing that. But mostly I wanted it to be something that was, it was artistic, but I wanted it to be something that served the music, that really, it was compatible with the music and was synergy with the music. I have this photograph that I had taken, that what I basically did was, I had taken this film and I saw this footage, and I took this part of the footage that I thought it really touched me, and I saw these kind of like trees and signposts that it created this feeling of like a film strip, like a film. When you look at a film and you have the different slides as they go by. So I saw that in these things, and I froze it, it had these like frames like you would have on a film. And so I froze it between these sections, and I thought, wow, it's like a film. I took this film and I made it into a photograph, but then by having these sections within the photograph, it brought it back to a film state, if you will. And so at the time I did this, I didn't really quite know how it was going to fit in with things, but I knew it was going to fit in some way. And then it came to me to make this kind of a looping film out of this thing, which would create this repetitive scene of this, what I consider to be this urban tense reality, which is part of what the whole project is, but it's part of the Urban Elixir piece. And it just seemed that was the urban tense reality to me. And that picture there, just with that woman dragging that cart with the child behind her, it just seemed that was it. I wanted to ingrain this in the people that were watching, but mostly I wanted it to be something that wasn't going to distract from the music, but yet enhance the listening experience and kind of more or less be a visual of what you're feeling at that moment when you're listening to the music. So I had this looping thing going on, but then I also had this section of the film where it says, "We're experiencing technical difficulty, please stand by." Mm-hmm. I didn't just do that to be funny. That was meant to more or less take everyone out of this reality, this urban tense reality for a moment, and distract them, and then bring them back into it again, just to kind of create, this tension and release sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. And also just to give them something else to look at, I guess. But mostly to create this distraction and to take them out of that reality for a moment. I think that sometimes you have to do that to people anyway, just to take people out of where they are just for a moment to get them on another track, just to break up things and get people to see a different perspective for a moment. And that's what I'm trying to say here, is that to take them out of that reality was to distract them and to get them out of their own reality that they were in, and now bring them back into this reality. When they go back again to the urban tense reality of the film, now they have been distracted, so now they go back into this, and their mind is clear now, and they now get pulled right into this reality now, and then it allows that urban tense reality to be ingrained in their minds. At the end of this piece, I took the film that I had been chopping up into these pieces, if you will, and at the end I put the photograph back together, and I froze it like that. It just seemed like the perfect way to end this, like going to a movie where they just end it and the freezes there in the scene. Yeah, that's what I was trying to create here, this frozen scene, but also to bring it back so that now the people that were watching this art film can have a reference and a context of what they were looking at as a whole piece now, and they could put the whole piece together and see what they were, they were getting these little frames of in the film. Now they can see the whole thing as one reality. And I just thought, to stop it there like that and look at that woman. If that doesn't break your heart, then I don't know what will.
Thank you so much for explaining that.